Today I have Noah Galloway with me. He is an American soldier. He's a veteran. He has been on Dancing with the Stars. He's been on Ellen. He's been all over the place. But I'm privileged to have him here on the Rise and Above podcast to share his story. So I guess without any further introduction, how are you doing today, Noah?
I'm doing really good, David. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Again, like I said, I came across your story online and I see that you wrote a book called No
Mhm.
Excuses. I love that title, by the way.
Yeah, it's living with no excuses. It
Living with
was
No.
funny when I wrote it, when we were going through the process of writing it, the publishing company didn't want it to say no excuses or anything that had to do with no excuses. And they didn't even like living with no excuses, but I fought to keep that. And I'm really happy with the title that I ended up with because that's what I wanted.
Why didn't they want that?
They were afraid that it was going to come off like a fitness book and not a memoir, not a story of my life. So I saw where they were coming from, but then it was just a lot of back and forth because I felt like this is who I am. This is my story, and everybody, as I started to build a social media platform, everyone was talking about no excuses. So I wanted that in the title. And I eventually threatened to drop them, and they finally said, "Okay, well, you can name it whatever you want." So it worked out to my advantage because they could have said, "Okay, we'll go somewhere else."
Right, right. Well, that's awesome. I'm happy that you're able to keep that title because I love it. I mean,
Thank you.
because oftentimes I talk about it all the time on the podcast. When people go through traumatic things, they find every excuse in the book to not get up and go forward in life. They want to stay in that spot. And I think for somebody like you to say, there's no excuse, it speaks measures.
And you're right. Like, you don't have to you don't have to lose your arm and leg to, want to quit. I mean, it's in all of us. People all the time, we hit barriers in our life and we want to just stop. And, I'm not one of those people that, is like, you just got to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going. No excuses means, getting help if you're going through depression or you're struggling, but to always want more. I tell my kids all the time, you don't want to just be average. You've got to want, in fact, just yesterday, my 14-year-old son has recently gotten into fitness. So for the last couple of months, we've been working out. It's got me excited, him excited.
That's
We go to
cool.
the gym real often. We were there yesterday and it was leg day. And he got in that squat rack and he's like, "God, I'm so sore." I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "This isn't normal." I said, "You know what? We're not normal. Do you want to be normal?" He's like, "No." I said, "Well, then start squatting." That's what it is.
That is awesome. Um, it's beautiful that your kids can see that and that you're living that day to day. Um, so do you mind explaining who you are and where you're from? Let's kind of get into your story a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. This is where I grew up, and I was in college at the University of Alabama at Birmingham uh, when September 11th happened. It was my first year in college. I had been on my own already, and I decided maybe I needed to do something better with my life. I was working in a plant that I loved working at, but it's like, where am I going to go? So I ended up in college, and when 9/11 happened, I watched that unfold on the news. And I remember watching, worrying about everyone in that one twin tower, and then watching that second plane hit and the screams around the cameraman when it happened. And suddenly the anchors that were on the news went from pilot error to "we're a country under attack." And I watched for as long as I could. Then I went for a run and decided, you know what, I'm 20 years old, I'm physically fit, and I love my country. So I never showed back up to class. I enlisted in the Army. I have an uncle that's a Vietnam veteran that always said, if you go in the military, go airborne infantry so you're right up front. So that's what I told the recruiter. Ended up with the 101st out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. General Petraeus was our division commander. So I got to be in the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Loved my job, re-enlisted in Iraq so I could go back again the second time. And I was hit by a roadside bomb and ended up losing my left arm above the elbow, my left leg above the knee. Severe injury. My jaw was shattered. My right leg was severely injured. My right hand. So there's a lot of things that happened. I struggled for a long time with that. And then, of course, I went through my depression and my struggles, and I don't want to get too ahead of my story, but that's what led to my injury.
I think, I mean, like we had mentioned in the beginning, a lot of times when people go through situations like that, it gives them every excuse in the book to not go forward in life, and it gives them every reason to just have, I guess, a pity party, right? You know,
Oh,
like
yeah. Oh, when I was in the hospital, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to deal with anybody. I was upset. I'd lost one of my leg. I
how
never, go ahead.
how could you not?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then it was like I didn't really like, I considered the military, but wasn't so like, I respected the military, but didn't see myself fitting in that world. But then once I got in, I loved it. And I'd put in my packet, did the physical, everything. I wanted to go special forces, wanted to do everything. And that was taken away. One day I wake up in a hospital and that was all gone. So, I mean, I was so depressed, so bothered by it. And yeah, I didn't want to do anything. And I've always told people that I could have just stopped right there and people would have said, hey, I mean, he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
But it was actually my children that motivated me. My children were very young. And one day I walked into the living room and my three kids were on the couch watching cartoons, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized my two boys, I'm the example of what a man is, and that's what they're going to grow up to be one day. And to my little girl, I'm showing her how a man's supposed to act, and that's what she's going to look for one day. So I knew I had to make a change, and it all started with just changing my eating habits, getting back into, because I wasn't taking care of myself. Fitness was something I've loved for a long time, and my depression was the worst shape I'd ever got in. I started, going to mental health, changed the way I was eating, eased back into the gym, and just slowly started improving. I still made mistakes, but every time I screwed up and fell flat on my face, the thought of my three children was my motivation to get up and keep going. And that really just continued to this day. Look, my life is amazing. But there are mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't really want to get up. But I think about the kids. And like I said, now my 14-year-old is working out, and that's gotten me back in the gym even harder. It's been fantastic.
That is amazing. What were those moments like? Some of those first moments when you started getting back into fitness, with just losing a leg and an arm. I mean, obviously things are a lot more difficult, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It was,
what was it like? I'm sure it was kind of discouraging in some aspects.
oh, it was, and terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I went from, you know, a gym rat, someone who is in the gym all the time, to not wanting to be looked at, terrified to go in. So I joined a 24-hour gym so I could go at 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody was there, and work out. And I figured out how I could work my right side and then my left side. And then it took a little while, but once I got it in my head that this was back, 2008, 2009, and there were no books, magazines, articles online that could tell you how to work out missed arm leg. I looked for them. So then I told myself.
This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth.
And this is how it was in the military, is once you convince yourself you're doing what most people can't, then it gives you this extra motivation. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else, but you have to tell yourself, there's that moment of saying, I'm doing what most people would quit at. And
Right.
so once I told myself that, well, then it was like, okay, how am I going to work my left side? How am I going to work? And I started pushing myself to do more and more. And that was my motivation, to convince myself, okay, what am I doing, and why is it important? So then I had my kids were my motivation. And then I had, telling myself that I was doing something incredible. And it really drove me, but it took time. And, and since then, I felt like I have a better understanding of people who weren't gym rats, easing back to the gym or getting into it for the first time. And you know what? I tell people all the time, whether you're battling with obesity or just trying to get healthy and you've never been into fitness, that those first steps are terrifying, but most people won't do that. And just like I told my son, getting in the squat rack, what we're doing is not normal, but we don't want to be normal. We all want to excel. And so
Yeah.
being abnormal isn't the crazy thing. It's saying, I want to be better than what's expected of me.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. That's so inspiring.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, the thing about that is too, is I was last year training for a 50-mile ultra run. And I remember one of my friends and coworkers, he's a personal trainer, and he was telling me, because I would post on social media like, oh, I ran 26 miles today or whatever. And he's like, that's more than the average person. That's more than anybody
Yes.
else. And that by him saying that inspired me and gave me motivation to think like you said, nobody else is doing this.
Yeah.
I'm doing more than what the average person's doing, and there's something to that.
Yeah. You mentioned like I was on Dance with the Stars. I was also on the cover of Men's Health, and they called me the ultimate guy. It was actually a competition to look for someone outside, because Men's Health always had a celebrity on the cover, and they wanted to find this ultimate guy. And 1,300 men entered that competition, and I ended up winning it. And they told me after I won that some of the judges weren't sold on me. But it wasn't until I answered some essay questions, and after I answered them, I thought, I'm gonna list all the races I've done. And I sent it in, and they said that's when they were like, this is our guy. I had more
Wow.
races under my belt, missing arm and a leg, than men who had all their arms and legs. I'd done everything from marathons, Tough Mudders, Spartan races. The death race is a Spartan race that was 58 hours long, and I completed it. So it was one of those things that, I was pushing myself, and that's what got me that cover, which ended up being what got me on Ellen and just set me on the course for a whole bunch of incredible things.
That's truly amazing. And what's crazy to think is that you were at a spot in your life where you kind of gave up, and then you decided one day to change, and here you are. You've done all these
Yeah.
incredible things. Do you think that you would have seen this when you
Oh,
were in that
no,
spot? No.
not at all. Not at all. But I'm very fortunate, very happy. And, I always tell people, not everybody's going to, get motivated and end up on Dancing with the Stars, but that's not the real lesson here. The real lesson that I remind myself every day is I got back into shape and I started taking care of myself again for my children. They are my priority. And when I was on Ellen and then the phone started ringing, it wasn't Dance with the Stars that called me first. First Survivor called me, which I thought, man, that'd be amazing. But I couldn't be away from the kids that long. That show, they told me, they said, you go on the show, even if you get voted off, you stay with the crew, no contact back home. I was like, I
Wow.
can't do that. So I turned it down. Another show called, I turned it down. I didn't think anybody else was on a call. Dance with the Stars called and said, we'll put you in a house in LA for the duration of the time you're here. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I have 3 kids here in Alabama, more important than a television show. And without hesitation, Dean Katz, producers, said, that's okay. Alabama, you'll rehearse there and fly back and forth for the live show. And I ended up doing it. I'd never even watched the show. To this day, I've never seen a show outside of the one I was on. But it was the best thing I ever did because it opened up this entire world. But you know what? I stood strong on my kids being a priority. And I still do that. I tell people all the time, when it comes to business, you have to think of your family. And,
Yeah.
the easy answers aren't always that obvious. It takes a while. But you know what? If you put your family first, you're always going to make the right decision.
Absolutely. Um, and that shouldn't be the goal. The goal shouldn't be to go on TV the reason you should better yourself is so you're better. So
Yes.
you better like you said, your family, and you're doing it for
Mhm.
you, your family, and all your loved ones around you. Um, what is your book about? When did you decide to write a book, and how can people get that? And
All right. So the book, Living with No Excuses, I had it was after Dancing with the Stars. People kept talking about a book, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to. And then I hired a girl, a good friend of mine, who had did the first national story about me long before Men's Health, any of that. She just met me at a veterans thing. Is like, I want to do a story on you. I was like, okay. And it was just a nicely well-written story. And so Rebecca Bayer is her name, and I hired her. She was in between jobs. So it was perfect. And so I hired her. She was my ghostwriter, and it was perfect because she knew how to ask the right questions. Because the book is about my childhood, going into the military, serving the military, Dancing with the Stars, all of that. But the meat of the book is I talk openly and honest about my depression. And what was perfect about hiring Rebecca was we could get on the phone and she could ask the right questions and get me talking about these sensitive subjects, these topics that were hard to discuss, but they were necessary. And so I shared them openly and honestly in the book. There's a lot of highs and lows. It's not a depressing book, but I mean, that's the meat of it. And the book itself, when it came out, it's been a couple of years now, but when it came out, I was terrified. I thought, oh my God, all these people that saw me on Dancing with the Stars and loved me and saw me as this Southern gentleman, they're going to see a side of me that isn't that pretty. There's an entire chapter dedicated to me spending 10 days in the county jail. So it's not this pretty picture, but I was trying to tell myself, you know what, if one person reads this and connects with it, then it's done its job. And since it's been out, oh man, the amount of people that reach out to me that have related to it or just been able to relate to someone else they know because of what they read has been phenomenal. I'm so proud of that book.
That is awesome. Are you still there?
I am, yes.
Oh, okay, it cut out for a second.
I'm sorry.
What was I going to say now? I'm blank now. I'm sorry.
Well, the book, so I mean, when the book came out, we had to speed it up. It was supposed to come out in the fall. They were shooting for around Veterans Day, and we had more time. Rebecca's trying to put the book together. We're writing everything, putting it together. Then it's right before the election, and the publishing company says, you know what? We're going to have it come out in August, so it doesn't interfere with because everything was about Trump and Hillary. And I always joked and said I should have put them on the cover, even though they're not mentioned in it. It would have sold better. But we had to scoot it up. It came out, but it's done great. The publishing company has told me that most books sales go up, they go down. Mine has a tail, and they said that that's word of mouth. That means people like the book. So they said It's actually very rare. So it's been really good. And then on top of that, Rebecca helped me do the book. I love audiobooks, and I love it when authors read their own books.
Yes,
so
I
that
do
was
too.
The one thing when I met the publishing company, that was the one thing I said, I want to do my own audiobook, which wasn't easy. It was much harder than I thought it was. It took like 3 days of just it was so hard, but I read my own audiobook. So there's the audiobook, and then there's the hardback and the softback cover of the book that you can get on Amazon, or my website has a link, noahgalloway.com, that links you to, I think, the publishing company to order it from there, because you'd ask, where can you find the book? So those are the places you can find it.
Now, you had mentioned that you were kind of worried about putting the book out because of how vulnerable you were in it. You with people seeing who you were on TV and then them finding out who you really were, you were kind of concerned about how people would look at you. I think it's important to put that out there, to put, what it took for you to get to where you are now, because when people see you, they see this like amazing guy. They see a guy who's extremely fit, somebody who runs marathons or does all these races, or who's on Dancing with the Stars or Ellen. Like, man, this guy's an awesome guy.
But that's not motivating, because they think, oh, that's just him.
Right.
But you're right. Like, to put in the book, the struggles show that I'm no different than anyone else.
Right.
There's been the struggles, divorces, all these different things, and pain I caused on myself over and over again, that we do, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So no, I'm glad you said that, because it is. I didn't want people to think that I just lost an arm and a leg, said, okay, well, let's get in shape and go dance. No,
Right.
it doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, it's so easy. I mean, especially in today's day and age with the way social media is, to have a victim's mentality,
Hmm.
right? I
Hmm.
mean, it's so easy to fall victim to yourself and
Yeah.
not hold yourself accountable.
When to look at social media and think that everyone else's lives are perfect and
Yeah.
think, why isn't mine? But they're just showing you what they want you to see. I remember years ago, I think it was before Instagram, I built a Facebook page and I was excited. I remember when I had 100 followers, I was like, oh my God, and then it kept growing. But then someone had said, do you not feel weird sharing so much of your life and your family? And I said, I'm only sharing what I want to share. You're not seeing when I'm depressed or when the kids are acting up,
Right.
and at first I thought, well, that's genuine, but now that's gone to the extreme where we all think that everyone's lives are perfect. And
Yeah.
we all do it. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I've sat in bed and looked at other people's Instagram like, oh man, they're doing way better than I am. But why? Why think that we should be excited that other people are doing well if they are? And then just always, doing the best in our lives and not trying to compare. It's easier said than done, but we really have to get in our heads not to compare to what's going on, because a lot of times people aren't sharing the entire story.
Right. And I think it's really cool that you were able to literally take control of your life, because from what it sounds like you were like kind of just your life was just whatever it was.
Mhm.
And then you were able to just grab it and just run with it. I mean,
Well, I
you
think I was fortunate. I can't take all the credit. I have an amazing family, friends, and my children. I mean, it sounds so corny to say it, but I don't think they'll ever understand how much they helped me, because I wanted to be a good example. And I'm a firm believer that leaderships, leading from the front is how you do it, by example. I don't want to
right,
be that person that's do as I say, not as I do.
right.
If I'm doing it, well, then I expect you to do the same, because I'm doing my best to do my best. I always tell the kids, I don't expect you to be the best, just give me your best. And that's what I try to tell myself as well.
That is awesome. Um, what are you doing these days? I mean, you said today that you're meeting up with another kid that had gone through some
Yeah,
traumatic
I had,
experiences.
yeah, that was before, I think, I don't know if it was recorded or not, but yeah, I'd spoke to a school a couple months ago, and then the kids wrote me letters, and one of the kids has gone through some severe burns over the course of his life. I don't know if he was younger or what, but he related to my story, and we reached out to the school, and now I'm going to meet with him and his father, and I'm really excited about it. The pandemic really turned my world, like everyone else, upside down. Here it was, I was doing a lot of public speaking and meet and greets, and then all that stopped, which was kind of nice. I wanted the break, but then it's like I'm a pretty active person. So it's like, okay, what do I do now? I'm gonna lose my mind. So, I'm trying to stay active in the gym. I did, at the beginning of the pandemic, it just stopped. Oh, am I still there?
Yeah, you're here. You just froze. I can still hear you though.
Okay. But got back into fitness. My son's helped motivate me because he wanted to get in the gym, so it's got me in there. But I'm doing some speaking here and there, staying in contact, working with different things. There's a possibility of a show happening, but like I told my wife, I was like, look, these things come up. They might happen. They might not. I'm not going to overthink it right now. All that I'm really concentrating on is just trying to be the best husband and father, to be the best for my family, and just trying to do everything I can. So things are kind of just up in the air right now.
Okay.
When you ask me what I'm doing, I'm not real sure. But to be honest, I haven't known what I've been doing for the last several years, and it's worked out pretty well.
Now, what looking back before you joined the military and before you lost your limbs and went through everything you had gone through, you obviously were a young man with some probably goals in mind, and you joined the military, and your life changed after that. What were some goals you had after that? Because obviously, I'm sure some of your goals shifted based on your situation.
Well, David, I would love to say that I was this this kid that, a young man that had mapped his entire life out. I was not. I was not. I had no look, David, I was a problem child. I didn't do well in school. I actually dropped out of school. And it's funny that I ended up in college when I got my GED years later after dropping out of school. And I scored real high on the GED. And these ladies, where I took the test, convinced me to go to college.
Wow.
I had no plans. I had no goals, and I share that because as you said it, I thought, you know what? I'd love for someone that is listening to this podcast to know that, hey, we don't always have to have it figured out. Sometimes you just got to keep churning. You have to keep moving until that happens. There was a saying in the military, false motivation is better than no motivation. And you know what? Some kids you look at in high school and in college that they got it together. And you think, well, then what have I got? Nothing. You know what? We all have something. You just have to find it. And it took me a while to find mine. I was a struggling student. And I've had people ask me, if I hadn't have dropped out of school and joined the military, what was I going to do in college? Well, probably wouldn't have made it. In fact, I just told my wife the other day, I think now at 40, I'm finally old enough and slightly mature enough to go back to school. I have not been capable of doing it up to this point. And it's just one of those things that some people fit in that box better than others. And, again, I point that out because not everything is so cookie cutter and perfect. And I don't want anybody to think that I had this perfect plan mapped out, because I didn't. It was all just me just trying to just do my best. When I struggled at school, I got out and I went to work, and I loved working. When I worked in a plant, I was the youngest person in that plant's history to run his own crew. Found out later they thought I was older than I was. I didn't lie about my age. They just assumed it.
Where did you work? Where did you work at?
There was a plant north of Birmingham called Reno Refractories. And as soon as I turned 18, was old enough to work there, I got a job there. And then by 19, I was running my own crew. I had men in their 40s that worked under me.
Wow.
And I loved it. I worked hard. I'd stay in contact with people at that plant. When I got injured, I went to visit them. They said, we'll hire you. I said, well, what am I going to do, Mr. Arm Leg? They said, we don't know. We don't care. We'll find it. I didn't end up going back to work there, but they said that because they knew I worked hard. And sometimes at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Just pushing yourself as hard as you can, and just knowing that eventually something's going to come into your world that fits, that clicks, and to not stress out if it doesn't happen early like it does for some people.
I think that's an important point, because a lot of people, they might have a job that they don't like. And so they don't work hard. They don't like this job. They don't really care. They're not going to try their best. But I think it's important, no matter what job you have, no matter what you're doing, to do your best. And opportunities come from there.
Yeah, David, listen, I remember one time I spoke at a company, and it was, their entire staff. It was a small company, but all their staff was there. And I told them, I said, some of you may work your way up here in this company. Some of you may not want to stay here. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you think that if you can half-ass your job here and then go be successful somewhere else, you're lying to yourself. Because if you can't do it here, you can't do it there. And people got to realize that. Hey, you have to always be giving your best. And if you can't offer it, then, go find something else. But don't think that if you are not doing it there, that you can't do it somewhere. You should always be pushing it. I did landscaping, I did construction, I worked in that plant. When I was right before I dropped out, I worked for a couple of months at Chuck E. Cheese. And you know what? I worked hard at that job. I took one of those things that you should never give up, even though it's not a job. I didn't want to stay there, but you know what? I wanted to give my best.
And it teaches you skills for other jobs that you may have in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of things are you doing fitness wise today? I mean, obviously you said you go to the gym. Are you still running races? What?
So that's funny you say that. So I hadn't been doing races for a while, and I actually had told my wife, I was like, you know what? I think I want to ease back into, because I loved it. It felt so good running. I prefer also course races to marathon. I hate running. I'll be like, you talk about running 50 miles. I'm like, oh my God. I hated running when I had two legs, what I mean? But after course races, you don't think about the running because you run a little bit, you do an obstacle. You run a little bit, you do an obstacle. And I love that. And I love just being out with people and getting muddy. And then, how it feels when you finish because you're wore out.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how that is when you do an event, it just the
Yep.
finish is
Oh
where you
yeah.
love it.
Oh
It may
yeah.
suck the entire time from start to right before the end, but when you cross that finish line, there is nothing more euphoric than that feeling. And
Yep.
I want to get back into it. And I think that especially with my middle child getting into fitness, he loves to run. Then I got my oldest son. Our connection is playing golf and things like that. But the fitness is, right now I'm working with my son. We're going through phase. We're lifting heavy right now. Then we'll get back into pushing our cardio, and we're just showing him the ropes of fitness has been exciting. And I do want to get back into running races because it just feels too good to not do it.
I think it's really cool that you're training your kids to that fitness is important, because a lot of like when I was growing up, for instance, fitness wasn't really emphasized. It wasn't really talked about. I mean, the most you would work out is like during practice at like basketball practice or wrestling
Yeah.
practice, and that wasn't really considered like an actual workout. It was just training.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but today, like fitness is huge.
Hmm. Yeah. It's been, so like my oldest son doesn't, this is funny. He wants to look fit, but not do all the work. But it's okay. I told him, I was like, that's fine.
Don't
Just
we
do
all?
some, I got him. He does a little bit. You know what I mean? We're just teach them to be healthy. Look, I don't expect my kids to be, obsessed with fitness like I was their age, because we're all
Right.
different, but I do want them to be healthy. We do eat healthy. All three of the kids, eat healthier because like if we want a snack, they love eating fruit. So we keep a lot of fruit in the house. And so it's been really good because it's of the three kids, there's three different personalities. And, right now I'm talking a lot about fitness and my 14-year-old son, but my little girl and my oldest son, they're healthy. They just aren't obsessing over fitness like my middle son. And that's okay. I tell them, hey, I'm not going to force you to go lift heavy. You know what I mean? But let's just take care of ourselves.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's very important. One thing that I have kids too, we have a home gym, and that's one thing I found that's really cool is my kids have grown up seeing us work out, and
Mhm.
they witness, like how to throw the weights around in the gym, and so it's kind of cool to see how as the years go on, how they are incorporating some of those things and just the daily things that they do, like my son, he'll act like he's doing push-ups or
Yeah.
pull-ups, and he just turned 5 the other day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see.
That's like we were talking about leading from the front. I mean, all you can do, you can talk. I've told this, I've heard it and passed it on to other young parents ever since I heard it. You can tell your kids whatever you want until you're blue in the face, but they're going to become what you are.
Yeah.
And that is seeing what you're doing, watching you. Our children watch us and they do everything we're doing, the good and the bad. And that can be scary. That's what motivated me to try to improve my life, because it's true. They do. They see everything we're doing. And so we should always be trying to show them our best self. And the same goes in business. If you're a leader, you want those under you to see you working hard, to see you doing your best, to see you motivated and happy. So don't be, a lazy jerk and expect those under you to be different. So
Yeah.
the same goes with our family and with work.
And I think it's really easy to kind of get into that rhythm too, like especially as a boss, like seeing your employees, like if you don't have to really do much, it's easy to sit around and watch them do the work and tell them what to do, as opposed to, getting your elbows dirty too. And,
Yeah.
you know,
And sometimes there are jobs that, okay, you don't have that to do, but put yourself in their shoes. Should you at least look like you're doing, find something to do. So look like you're busy so they don't feel
right,
like you're just watching them work, because
right.
that doesn't motivate anybody.
Right. Oh, that's hilarious. So is your wife into fitness as well? Is your whole family?
My wife is a yoga instructor
Oh,
that is, has followers all over the world, hosts yoga retreats. She's done them in Bali for several years, but now with COVID, they're very tight on their restrictions. I just went with her. She did a yoga retreat in Costa Rica in November.
wow.
And yeah, no, she's a lot healthier than I am. Like I'm a guy that likes to go in the gym, just pick up heavy things, put them down.
Yep.
She's more mobile than I am. She eats cleaner than I do. I will cheat a lot more than she will. But no, she is, and it's been great because she's another example for the children to show that, hey, eating healthy is a lifestyle. This is who we are, and look how healthy and happy we are in
Yeah.
life. And so we just hope that they follow in those footsteps.
I just interviewed a UFC fighter's wife the other day, and one thing she was talking about was like the balance of fitness and like just a healthy lifestyle in general. And yoga was one of them. I oftentimes do yoga because it helps, stretch, and I feel good after. I'll do it like after a workout, like after lifting. It just makes me feel great.
Yeah.
Is that something you do when you work out? Do you do yoga often, or do you meditate?
So I'm not gonna lie to you, David. I don't. When I did the yoga retreat, it was funny to everyone there because here it is, I'm married to this amazing yoga instructor, and we're like, this is my first class. You know what I mean? Because she doesn't force me to do anything. She wants me to do it, and I actually really enjoyed it. Not just the yoga, the meditation, just everything, just clearing your mind. And we talk about it, and she wants me to start doing it more often, and I haven't yet, but I do need to because it's sad. Like I love, getting stronger, but then it'll get to where when I can't even put my shoes and socks on because my foot seems so far away because I can't bend my body. So, in fact, because my 14-year-old son Jack is learning so much about fitness, we decided the other day that 2 days a week he and I are going to commit to doing some yoga and meditation with my wife to improve our balance, our flexibility, our mindset, everything on our days off of working out. So we just agreed upon that last night. So
That's cool.
hopefully next time I see you or talk to you, I'll be like, oh, I am this amazing yoga person.
You're a yogi. Uh,
Yes.
um, yeah, I think like a good balance between weightlifting and just being flexible and everything is
Mhm.
vital. Do you have to be pretty limber, like with having just one arm and one
One
leg?
arm. You know, I I think my core is stronger now because I do things with one arm and one leg. Because even when I work out, like days that I'm working just my right side, like my body is tightening up because usually you'd be balanced. And so I'm
Right.
doing one arm or vice versa. So my core and then my balance is been really good. And that's been very fortunate because I'm above the knee as an amputee. And when I'm walking around, if that knee bends, I'm going down and my right leg has to be ready and stable. My center of balance is more to the right now than it was before. I learned a lot actually on Dancing with the Stars
Hmm.
because I don't dance, still don't know how to dance, but there's so much in dance that has to do with when one limb goes this way, one has to go that way to counterbalance it. And I was having to muscle it to do it. So it took a lot of core strength. So I think that that's what's improved the most is my core.
That that's really good because I could strengthen my core a little bit more.
Oh yeah, mine was never. Look, when I was in the military, when we do PT test, I could run fast, I could do push-ups, I could do everything. But sit-ups, because the problem was I was skinny and never had to worry about how my abs looked.
Right.
So I never worked my core enough. Because then after the military, the chubby guys, well, they could do sit-ups for days because they always wanted better abs. Now I finally, since I've been injured, is the first time my core has been as strong as it is.
That's awesome. That's probably good for your back too. Your back is probably pretty
Yeah.
strong as well.
Yeah. And that's important because, so many things can go wrong as an amputee. As an amputee, if there's one thing off on my prosthetic leg, it can cause severe lower back pain. I remember I had my lower back was killing me, and I saw two chiropractors, a doctor, and nobody could figure it out. Or they tried stretching me, doing everything. Finally, I saw my prosthetist, And he said, "Oh, your leg's probably off." So he checked my hips and he adjusted the height of my leg by just a fraction of an inch. And within a week, my back pain went away. So
Wow.
it's so critical that everything has to be on point. And which was interesting to realize and to make sure that I work my body, my left side as much as I can. Like it'll never catch up to my right, but I
Yeah.
have to work that side to keep everything equal. So I don't, because one thing off can cause pain somewhere else. And I don't want to do that.
So real quick, kind of going back to when after your injury, I say injury like you fully recovered, but when
I get
you
it.
you were in rehab, what was that like? Some of the first moments when you had to go to rehab and rehabilitation.
I was a bit of a jerk. Like I was the part of like the depression has different stages, and I was in this denial for a while, and I was angry. And so when it came to physical therapy, I didn't want to do it. I was determined to just like I tried to tell myself there was nothing wrong with me. I had a doctor ask me why I didn't spend time with the other veterans, and I said, why would I spend time hanging out with a whole bunch of cripples? And here it was, I'd lost an arm and leg, and I'm judging them. And it's because I was afraid to acknowledge what had happened to me. And it took several years for me to open up. And so no, I didn't take advantage of a lot. That Walter Reed Army Medical Center is an amazing hospital. And I wish I'd have taken more advantage of everything that was there, not just the physical therapy and the doctors, but the men and women that I was there with going through the same thing. I was not building a relationship with, and I should have. And it took a long time to make that connection, and I regret it. Um, but I was determined to just do things on my own. And so there was a good and a bad to it. It ended up working out in the long run, but it just happened to be that way. I could have been just as successful if I would have put in the work there, but I didn't because I wasn't right. I wasn't right in the head yet. And
Right.
it took me a long time to get there. When I tell people that I suffered from depression and they asked how long did it take to accept my injury and get over that, about 5 years.
Wow.
5 years of lying to myself and everyone around me on how I was feeling and doing. And it took a lot. It took a lot out of me.
Now, did you find, because you were so depressed, did you find any like coping mechanisms? Because you weren't into fitness, so you weren't able to use that as like a coping
I
mechanism.
I drank and ate salt and vinegar potato chips by the bags, just whole bag, just sitting there eating them. It was horrible. I read a lot, and yeah, there was nothing I was doing that was healthy, nothing at all.
Yeah.
Um, it was all bad, from eating, drinking, smoking to everything I was ingesting. Um, Nothing was good. And it was, like I said, I can't stress enough. It was my kids, me realizing, oh my God, I do not want them to grow up and be like this. And we all have moments in our life where we struggle and don't know how to overcome it. And a lot of books talk about our why, knowing your why. And when I talk about my kids, I always feel like I have to stop and say, not everybody has kids to motivate them, but find that thing that is bigger than your fear. My fear was actually stepping out and accepting my injury and seeing what I could do missing arm and a leg. That was my fear. And my kids helped me overcome that. And for any of us out there that's listening to this podcast, when you have that fear, you have to find what's bigger than that fear. And then when those moments of fear try to attack, tap into that thing that you found that, you know what, this is more important than that. So I must this fear and do what I have to do because it's important for me, or XYZ, whatever it is. And for me, it was my children.
That's amazing. I love that. I mean, that's such a simple answer. I mean, obviously more like people probably want more of an in-depth reason on why you changed your life, but really that's a beautiful answer. You did it for your
Yeah,
kids.
and I appreciate you saying that. It is. I always feel bad. It's not like this big ordeal, but it is. It's simple. It's there. It's right there. But we overlook the simple. In the
We do.
gym, I've told my son, I was like, everyone's looking for the next big thing. They always have. You know what I mean? What's next? What's next? You know what I mean? This is the way you work out. This is the way. And I was like,
Right.
it all comes down to, you know, time under tension. You know what I mean? That's all it
You
is.
just have to do the work.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I love that. Um, I don't know if you know Cameron Haynes, but he always says a quote that I love, and it's "No one cares," or "No one cares, so work harder," or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I wish I knew it to help.
It's "Nobody cares, so keep working harder," or something like that. I love
Yeah,
that
I mean,
quote.
I could, yeah, because I mean, I know what you're saying because people say it all the time. You can go around griping about your day all day long. Nobody really
Yeah.
cares. You have to get it done. But then at the same time, like, I can't help but I'm a big advocate for mental health. Like, that doesn't mean that if you're struggling with something, you shouldn't open up to someone you're close to and then
Right.
go see a professional. That's different. But just complaining to complain, yeah, no, that
Yeah.
does no good for you or anyone else.
Yes, absolutely. Um, Crap. What was I going to say? Yeah, I don't remember now. uh,
So how long have you had the podcast?
well, I've been doing it since it's been about a year now. Since January 31st of last year, I released my first episode. And
Are you loving it? Are you getting just meeting incredible people?
I've met so many people, and it's been incredible. It's been a great experience. I've learned so much. I From learning how to operate equipment and software, and just talking to people. Um, yeah, I've met a lot of people. I've interviewed politicians. I've interviewed a UFC fighter who lives locally near
Yeah.
me. Um, yeah, it's been a great experience. I mean, and I started it with the purpose of telling my story,
Mhm.
and it just kind of led into all these different avenues of me interviewing local business owners and why they got started, and it's been great. It really
Yeah,
has. Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
it obviously led me to be able to interview you, and this has been a great experience.
Now, do you have a background in any of this, or is it just like,
Nope.
hey, I want to share my story. I'm gonna buy the stuff and figure it out.
That's pretty much how it started. Yeah, I
And
work
I
at
love that.
General Motors, so I'm not by any means like a broadcaster or a
Yeah,
like a professional
yeah,
podcaster, vlogger, whatever.
that
But
is awesome.
I'm a firm believer in that whatever you do, you can always figure it out. If you really want to do it, you just got to work hard enough,
Yeah,
like you were saying.
no, that's
So
exactly right.
it's been like I said, a learning experience and a huge learning curve. I've had
Yeah.
episodes that didn't record, which was super upsetting.
Well, you just recently, didn't you have something like that happen?
I had an episode that
I know
the
you had to redo one.
yeah, yep,
Yes.
yeah, my audio equipment was cutting in and out, and so I actually had to go buy new audio equipment. But yeah,
Hey, it
but
happens. It
it
happens. I'll tell
happens.
you what, I'm going to compliment your background. I think that looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's just a shiplap wall.
Yeah, no, I love it. The
Thank you.
minute we got on, when you popped up on screen, I was like, oh, I like that.
Eventually, I'll have a sign behind me that says the name of the podcast and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, yep. I just
very
recently
cool.
set this room up. It's a bedroom I turned into a studio. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's like I said, it's been a fun, and it's mainly been fun. It's been a great
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
You
and
know,
I'm
it's the fact that you're having fun with it, and then you're able to get, my story out there, your story, and different pieces of it, and other people's stories out there. Like, that's amazing. That's why podcasts are so popular,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
we want to hear from people.
Yeah,
Too often we've always just had, these people that were big names that were the only ones doing it. And now this is a way that everybody can do it. And I'm truly honored that you even asked me to come on, David. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you have this podcast.
well, absolutely. Thank you, and I really appreciate you being willing to do this. I mean,
Yeah.
I've reached out to a lot of people, and I don't get a response or whatever, but it is what it is, and
Yeah.
you responded, and I really appreciate that.
And sometimes, and I got to say it because I know there's people who have reached out to me and I didn't catch it for a long time or may have missed it. Some of those people, they just haven't seen it yet.
Right.
So they may see it or reach out again, because I know for me, it's never bothered me if someone's reached out more than once. My own friends know that. I'm the worst. Like, I don't text people back. I'm surprised I even have friends anymore because I'm so bad at it. That's one of my New Year's resolutions, to try to be better at responding to people, at least my friends in text message. But most of my friends know if I don't respond within a couple of days, send that text again.
That's funny. That is hilarious. Well, I think we're creeping up on 11 o'clock here shortly. Is there anything, any words of inspiration you want to provide? I mean, there's so much that you talked about that I found was inspiring. Is there anything you want to hit on again, real quick?
I think that it's one, I can't help but, point out that we talked about, just like I do with my family, you lead from the front by example. And then not only that, and this coincides with leading from the front and by example, mental health. I think it's critical, it's important. If you had heart problems and you saw a cardiologist, well, your family and friends want to make sure you're okay. How you doing? Everything good? Good. There we go. Let's get back at it. This is the most complicated organ in our body, our brain. And so we have to take care of it. I go see my mental health doctor at least once a year. I'm doing great, you know what I mean? But I will go because something may creep up. But I do it because it's important. Just like I go see my regular doctor to check my blood pressure, everything else. So I
Right.
encourage people to take care of their mental health.
Well,
It's, you don't have to miss an arm, lose an arm and a leg to struggle and have things affect you.
right.
Whether it be from your childhood, from your as an adult, physically, mentally, whatever it is, and take care of it. Because if you do it, then you can be proud to know that your children or those that follow you will do the same. Because none of us want to see our loved ones suffer.
No.
So in order to encourage others to do it, we have to be doing the work. So it's all about, if you're going to take care of yourself physically, you have to take care of yourself mentally. And if I could push anything, it's that.
I love it. I love that. I was just talking on a podcast yesterday, or that I released today, actually, with Rebecca Gilmore. She was saying that, one thing that helped her was going to therapy, and she highly recommends that everybody go to therapy. I went to therapy a few years back, just because, like, of everything from my past, and then things that happened, in my life at that point, just kind of led me into this, like, mental state of being, and it wasn't good.
Mhm.
And by going to therapy and just sitting there and talking to somebody who understood and who could, tell you, explain how you were feeling, and explain to you, like, how you what you can do, different things you can do
Yeah.
to try to help yourself. And that helped tremendously.
Yeah. It's incredible. Like, people will not understand the gift that it is until they've experienced it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
Yep.
another thing that's helped me tremendously is working out. It sounds, I sound like a cult member when I talk about working out.
No, dude, David, I'm right on board. Look, I've told people, like, when I got back into fitness after my injury and my depression, like, it was my end all. I was this close to going door to door and asking people, have you accepted fitness into your life today? Like, it was, I love it. No, it does. There is something that comes from working out and doing that work. And
Yeah,
then, after a workout, feeling like, oh my God, I feel so much better. Those
yeah,
endorphins, everything. It's incredible.
it is. And then you see the progress you made, and then
Mhm.
you can look back and be like, wow, that's who I was. Now
Yeah.
this is who I am, and you
Yeah.
now know what you're capable of.
Yep. I always encourage people, don't just take a picture to look back on one day. Write everything down in a notebook. My son, we do it, right? And then before I even told him, he was like, oh, because then I can look back and see how much stronger and better I am. I said, that's exactly it. So it's perfect, because because every one of us, you can tell you're fit, you're big, but we all
Thanks.
hit plateaus,
Yeah,
and sometimes you have to flip back and be like, okay, I'm improving. It's okay. You know what I
right.
mean? I am so much better than I was. Yep.
I oftentimes think about a few years ago. I went to a kettlebell gym. Shout out to my friend Shane. He he's the one who kind of got me into fitness. I mean, he trained me from the start, and oftentimes when he was training me, I would complain. I was such a baby. Like, he'd put me through these workouts on, like, a rowing machine, and I'd fall on the floor, like pretty much
Yeah.
crying, and he's
Yeah.
just laughing at me. But it's those moments that now I can look back and be like, wow, I was so pathetic then compared to how I am now. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare do that now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, and I love it. And kettlebells, oh man, I love, especially like I was introduced to it after I was injured, and
Okay.
I love kettlebells. I keep
Kettlebells.
saying I'm gonna go get my kettlebell certification.
You should.
Yeah, I want to because it's just I love kettlebells.
Yeah, I love kettlebells. I just recently got a couple for Christmas, and yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But they can be challenging. See, a lot of people not do them right. That's what's a little, that's a struggle. And then it's that
Yeah.
weird thing in the gym. Like, do you say something? Do you not? I don't know. It's weird.
I would be interested to know, like, do you do kettlebell swings?
Yes.
How difficult is that? Because when I do like a single arm swing, I'm throwing my one arm back with it
Yeah.
to
No, I
help
mean,
balance.
I just like in running, I keep the movement the same. So
Okay.
I do, but then it's really just, I mean, both hips will do it, but it's mostly my right side. And when I do a kettlebell snatch, it's all power come from my right side all the way up.
Right.
And the biggest I've gotten, I think this is when I was working out a lot with kettlebells. I was able to snatch a 120-pound kettlebell, which
Wow.
I was really happy with because only me and like this small gym, only like two or three of us could do it. And I was
Wow.
doing it with one arm and one leg, which came in handy when I ended up on Dance with the Stars because I was the only dancer that could hold my dancer up with one arm. Even the professional dancers couldn't figure out how to do it with one arm. You know, they had to
Wow.
pick her up with two and then let go. So it worked. I told her I'm going to treat you like a kettlebell.
I'm sure she loved that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I found great inspiration from your story, and I'm actually haven't read your book, but I'm going to. I'm going to buy your book
Oh,
and I'm going to read it. Real quick, can you tell people where again to find it and where they can find you on social media?
yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm certified on all of them. But if you go to noahgalloway.com, that's my website. There's links to my social media and there's links to my book or anything else that you're looking for. It's the easiest place to go is just noahgalloway.com.
All right, and I will be sure to put that in the show notes as well. Um,
Awesome. Thank you, David. I really
thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it,
Oh,
and
thank you.
yeah, I'm honored. I'm honored to be able to talk to you.
I appreciate it, David.
All right, you have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right, bye.